Hello, this is Kurt again, and welcome back to the Kurt's Place channel here on the YouTube. This is going to be a video that I'm going to basically going to show you how to install a graphics card in a computer. One of the computers that I had, the Miss Pac-Man arcade machine that I had in my arcade bedroom tour, it needs to have an upgraded graphics card. So I'm going to show you in this video how you install a graphics card into a computer if you want to upgrade your graphics card. Okay, I'm going to show you what we're going to be installing in this computer on the table here. Okay, what you see on the table here is what we're going to be installing today. Okay, this is going to be a, if you look at this right here, okay, this is going to be a, it's going to be a 2 gigabyte GDRV NVIDIA GeForce GTX 750 graphics card. This is what we're going to be installing today. And we're going to be installing this today in the Miss Pac-Man computer, which is right here. This is the computer that's currently running Miss Pac-Man, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to install this graphics card in here. This is just going to give you a basic idea of how to go about this step by step. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to point out on this is, the first thing you want to do, okay, the first thing you want to do, anytime you buy a new graphics card like this, okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is, you're going to want to go ahead and open up the graphics card packaging, and look at all the packaging inside the graphics card first. I'm going to show you on the table exactly what comes with this graphics card. Okay, now as you're going to see when you open up this graphics card here, we're going to have some instructions that come with it. I'm going to move the computer off the table here so you can see better what I'm getting at. Okay, yeah, this is going to show you the basics of what comes in the box. Okay, when you open up the box, this is what the box is going to look like when you get it. When you open up the box, you're going to have things such as instruction notices inside, like this right here. Okay, now there's going to be things in there like that. They're going to have important notices on things like that. Now this, for example, this is an important notice. Okay, what this notice is telling you on this one is, it says the EVGA GeForce series graphics is a cutting-edge card that ships this latest technology, including a full UEFI BIOS. The graphics card BIOS is fully compatible with most motherboards. However, in some cases, motherboard BIOS updated is needed for best compatibility. Before installing the EVGA GeForce GTX 700 series graphics card, it is recommended to update your motherboard BIOS to the latest version. Please contact your motherboard vendor for more information on the update to the BIOS. Thanks and enjoy the EVGA GeForce 700 series graphics card. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, I've already, on my computer here, I've already checked the BIOS and everything on it already. I already updated it to the latest BIOS and things that's available from ASUS that made my motherboard. One thing you want to keep in mind when you install a graphics card is you want to make sure, when you're installing graphics cards, that you read all these instructions that come with it. It's very important to read all the instructions that come with it. This is just one of the things that comes with it. I'm going to show you the other things that come with it as well. One of the things I liked that this had is it had a really, really cool poster inside too. I'll show you what this looks like too. It had a really, really, really cool poster in there. See how cool that is? That was a really, really cool poster that came with this. That's the poster that came with the motherboard. Now, I'm hoping that maybe sometime I'll have room in my game. Maybe I'm hopefully going to go to a frame shop sometime and get a frame for this and put it up in the game room, some of my game room, because it looks pretty cool. Okay, you're also going to have in here, you're also going to have the EVGA graphics card user manual. Now, you're going to see, this is a manual that has a lot of information and everything on the graphics card. It's going to have things in here such as setting it up. And here you'll see things like setting it up, what to do, different installation instructions. It's very important when you get these. I'll show you what example what I'm talking about here. Okay, yeah. When you look at a book like this, it's very important to read through this whole book, because one of the things it advises in this book is, it says that if you currently have a motherboard that has integrated graphics, which mine does, go ahead and install all the graphic drivers and everything that came with the motherboard if you have them. I have already done that on my computer already. I already installed all the graphic drivers and everything that came with the graphics card that was in the computer. My graphics card was integrated into the motherboard, so it wasn't standalone. It was integrated into the motherboard. So I already took off all the drivers and everything that came with it in order to prepare it for the new graphics card. It's going to depend on your application, but that's one of the things. When you buy a graphics card like this, you always want to go through all the manuals and everything that comes with the graphics card first to make sure you do the installations proper. I have found installing graphics cards, some graphics cards install differently than others. It just depends on the type of card, the manufacturer, and also sometimes the operating system that you're running. So it's very important when you have this to make sure you go through the whole manual before you do anything. Before you open your computer, before anything. Once you open the package of the graphics card, look over the manual first. Make sure that that everything in here is going to work on your computer before you install your graphics card in your computer. Now, what you're going to find is on some of these graphics cards, when you get them, this is a manual that they actually came with this. They don't have manuals with all of them. Some of the manuals they have are on this. On these, you're also going to have a disc a lot of times that comes along with it. This basically has drivers and things on it. In addition to that, if you have a graphics card that doesn't have a manual that comes with it, a lot of times there's a PDF file manual that's actually on this disc itself. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you go ahead and read that manual over first before you do anything as far as installing your computer, opening up anything or anything involving the computer until you fully understand what's on that disk and in this manual. And that's one of the things that I highly encourage. You're also going to see one of the things that's really cool is inside here, inside this disk, there's also another little thing too. This actually comes with a little bit of EVGA badging right here. This is kind of a cool little thing here. It tells you, it just basically goes in your computer, and it's basically it says powered by EVGA graphics. And that's going to basically mount on the outside of the computer to let people know that you have a pretty nice graphics card. Now, I always enjoy putting those on the computer because I think it makes it look cool. Okay? So you have a disk as well. Okay? Now, you're also going to notice that they have little decals and things like this that came with this, too. These are pretty cool, too. So that's another thing they have. Okay? And now you're going to actually see the graphics card itself. Now, an important thing to note on this computer, when you're taking the graphics card out of the packaging like this, I basically used I had an anti-static spray. I made sure that I didn't have any static on me. I discharged all the static that I had on me prior to opening this up, because this is a part that you can damage easily if you're not really careful. So one of the things is you want to try to make sure you maintain as much of a static-free environment as you can. I usually have a discharge grounding wire that I use to discharge my body static if I have any. That usually works pretty well, and that's one of the things I use when I work on my computers. So far, I've installed about 10 of these graphics cards, and I haven't had a problem yet. So when you open up the card, it's going to come in a package like this. Okay. Okay, you're going to open up the packaging like that. Okay, now you're going to notice inside this film, another thing, when you take the graphics card out of this packaging, you have to be very careful when you're taking it out that you don't damage the fan. Because some graphics cards, depending on the type of graphics card, I'm going to show this to you. Yeah, some of the graphics card, like this card for example here, there's an actual fan on here, on the outside of the graphics card. You want to be very careful when you take this out that you don't damage that fan. Also, when you install this in your computer, you want to make absolutely certain that the fan is free. So any wires or anything that you have hanging near this, you want to make sure it's completely clear when you're installing it in the computer. I'm going to actually show you where I'm going to putting it in the computer case itself so you can see how I go about doing that. Okay, now you're going to notice on this too, one of these things it says remove protective film before use, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. And you also see there's another piece here on the fan as well. Okay. Now you're also going to notice on the graphics card too. If you remember, I was telling you about the fans and things too. You're going to notice too on the graphics card that there's little fins and things here. Okay. Now what I like to do every now and then on these graphics cards is I do like to take a can of spray duster. You can get it at computer stores. If you watch the computer store video later on that I have in the video, you can get computer duster at a number of places, but you want to make sure that you use computer duster basically to go ahead and I usually do it every 6 months. I go ahead and I just blow the dust out of my computer with a duster. It kind of helps to keep things clean. It keeps the dust from building up too bad. You want to especially be careful when it comes to veins like this. You want to make sure you blow the air out. Now, very important, when you use the duster, what you want to be careful of, when you blow dust in your computer, you're going to find that this fan is going to spin. Okay, when you blow duster, you have to be very careful that you don't blow too much air in here, because if this fan spins fast enough, it's possible, and I've done it one time, it's possible to actually break a blade off the fan. And if that happens, that can be a major problem when your graphics card is trying to run. The fan blade that I broke off wasn't on a graphics card like this. It was actually on a power supply fan. So I was able to replace the power supply because I was going to do that anyway, so it turned out just fine. But remember, anytime you're using duster to clean things like this, always be aware of these fans and things. You have to be careful that you don't damage those when you use duster on it. Now you're also going to see on this graphic card as well that it also has several ways of sending videos out to the monitors through the side here. I'm going to show you in the installation which one I'm going to be using for that. Okay? You're also going to notice on the side, it also has a protective cover. There's a protective cover on here that basically covers these pins. These are the actual pins that are going to install in the computer right here. So you're going to see how I'm going to actually install those. Now I usually keep the cover on here until I'm actually ready to put that on. So keep the cover on just like that. Okay. So this is what's in the package for the thing. It's a GTX. It's the EVGA NVIDIA GeForce GTX 750 Ti graphics card, and now I'm going to show you how we actually install it in the computer itself. Put all my things here off to the side. Okay. Now you're going to notice on my computer here, I'm going to do the best to kind of show you exactly how this works. One of the things I advise you to do when you're installing a graphics card, one of the things I advise you to do on these is to go ahead. Now I've already done this prior to installing this. I've already done this, but basically what I did is I open this up. Okay, on this computer there's tabs on the back. You just press this down, you pull the cover out, and then that basically opens it up and shows you the inside of the computer here. Now, one of the things I advise you to do when you have a computer like this, one of the things that I advise you to do on a computer, you want to go ahead on a computer like this, go ahead and use your duster spray, go ahead and blow everything out. Your fans and everything on the back right here, these fans right here, go ahead and blow those out. Use your duster and blow everything out, clean everything out. And also be aware that you want to blow all this out with air. And remember about the duster, being careful of the fan blades and things, not to damage those with the duster. You also want to go over the inside. What I like to do is, I basically go over the inside of the computer in here, and I basically go through the entire computer, and I make sure that there's no loose wires or anything that's going to be a problem when I install the graphics card. Now you're going to see in this computer, I'm going to basically show you where the graphics card is going to go inside here, and I've already done some of the work here, but I want to show you what to do. Okay. I'm going to bring the camera in closer so I can show this to you better. Okay, basically the graphics card that I have, it's going to go right in this slot right here I'm pointing to. That's where the graphics card is going to install. Now, as you're going to notice here, this is where it's going to install, right where this band here is. Okay, now you're going to notice that on my graphics card, there's a little socket right here. there's basically, when you install the graphics card, there's a notch that actually engages the graphics card right on the back here. So when you put it in here, this is where the graphics card is going to go. Now, as you can see, I don't have any wires around here. I made sure that all the wires and things were clear around here, so there's nothing here that's going to hit the fan. Now, you're also going to notice in the bottom of the case here that I had these little clips. I basically secured these wires down with these little clips to make sure that these wires don't lift up and hit that fan when it's turning in there. Same thing with the fans here. I made sure these are clear, and also made sure that the fans in the back where the power supply are clear. To any fans you have like these, or these, here, any of the fans that you have, some of the graphics cards, what I wanted to point out is, some of the graphics cards, depending on the quality graphics card you have, what you're going to find is that some of the graphics cards, for example, like the pinball cabinet, for example, some of the graphics cards are actually going to have a power supply. So what you're going to have is, you're actually going to have additional wires that come from the power supply that go into the graphics card. Now you're going to find that most of your higher end graphics cards, your really high end graphics card, for example, if you watch the pinball video, you're going to see that graphics card, basically there's wires that come out of the power supply and that go into the graphics card. Now when you have a situation like that, you have to be even more careful when you're running the wires. The graphics card that I'm just going to show here, I'm going to show you the back of the graphics card. On this graphics card here, basically, there's no wires. This is the only thing that powers the graphics card is here. There's no additional things in the back that are required. Now, some graphics cards will actually have power leads in the back for running additional power. What that means is it means you can use an auxiliary power supply like I did with the pinball cabinet, where it will actually run separate power supplies in the back here. Now, a power supply like that, if you have one like that, you're going to have a larger power supply than like the one that I have here. This is just a basic iMicro power supply. It'll handle this graphics card just fine. If you look on the box and everything, when you get the graphics card, I'm going to show that to you too. Okay, let me show that to you. Yeah. When you look at the graphics card in the store and everything there, when you're looking at the graphics card, one of the things you want to do is you want to check the side of, you want to check for the specifics on the graphics card. If you check this right here, this is going to show you that what the system card requires, as far as how many powers in the power, how many watts the power supply has to put out, among other things that are going to be in here. It's also going to show you what type of slots you need to run the computer. That's one side of the box. Then you're going to have the other side of the box. On the back, it's also going to show you, in addition to this here, it's also going to show you what systems it's compatible with. The one thing to keep in mind about a graphics card is don't make the assumption because a graphics card came out that it works on every computer. Some graphics cards require certain operating systems to run on. I ran into that situation with a graphics card last year that I bought. I was running Windows XP. As you know, I run Windows XP pretty much on all my computers. I had a graphics card that Windows XP did not work on when I got it. Now, fortunately, I did not install the graphics card. I caught myself. I took it back to the place. I was able to exchange it. The computer place I showed you, I was able to exchange it for another one, and I avoided a problem. Because as you can see, this graphics card can be kind of expensive. Now, this graphics card I bought here, this graphics card here was basically $179. The price of graphics cards varies depending on the speed and everything else that they have. Now, the pinball machine graphics card that was closer to $400 or $500 because it had a much more powerful graphics card than what I'm using now. So the thing you want to keep in mind is when you're buying a graphics card, you want to buy graphics cards that meets what you need, but it's not too overkill either. Now, the graphics card I'm using for this computer, it's maybe a little more than I need, but if I'm going to be expanding things in the future, and I think I am, the great thing about having that is I know I'm not going to have any problems in it, at least for the next 5-10 years, which is one of the things that's important when I install a graphics card. Now I'm going to show you how I actually install the graphics card in the computer itself. Okay, I just want to point one other thing out also on the back. One of the things you want to note on the back of the graphics card, if you remember I was telling you about quality, all the specifics and everything on the graphics card are listed on the back. Things such as the power that it has, the type of connectors that it uses, the outputs that it has. All these things are listed on the box when you buy a graphics card. So it's important to go ahead and read these things and see, make sure that it meets all your needs. Now, one of the things I also suggest is, if you're building a project and you're investing in a graphics card, if you have a computer place that's close by, I'm going to have a video in the next couple weeks on a computer store, computer place where I buy all my computer things. It's always better if you can get some technical advice on a graphics card, especially if it's a higher end graphics card, because some of these graphic cards and applications, they can run into several $100s. And that's one of the reasons why when you're installing graphics cards like this, if it's a very, very high end graphics card, it's best to try to get an opinion on it before you buy it and install it. Because there's nothing worse than having a graphics card that you spent a lot of money on and it's not going to work like you had hoped. So that's one of the things I advise you. If you're spending any graphics card that you have, if you can get technical help on what specs and things it has and what it'll run on from a computer place, I highly suggest that, because it's saved me a lot of problems in the past by doing that. Let me go ahead and get back to the installation of the graphics card. Okay. Now you're going to see on this computer that basically the way you open this up is on the bottom of the computer here. There's a little cradle, and what you do is you lift this little flap up here on the bottom. Okay, when you lift this little flap up right here, that's going to basically show you. This is going to show you the actual slots where you can install the graphics card. Now, as you can see, I'm going to install it in this slot right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the little metal bracket that goes in that slot wherever that is, and I think it's this one here if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's that second slot right there. So basically you just pull this out and then this little tab comes out. Okay? Then your graphics card is going to actually install in here. Okay, now what you're going to do when you install your graphics card is you're going to, that little protective cover I showed you, you're going to take that off the graphics card, off the back, and that's going to show you the connector right here. Now, as you're going to notice in the back of the computer, there's a little slot right here. There's a little notch back here in the back of the computer right here. It's like a little blue notch, and if you look in here, you can see it pretty clearly. It's this blue connector right here. That's where we're going to connect the graphics card. And there's a little notch in the back. You'll see on the back of the graphics card, there's a little notch in the back of the graphics card. This little notch right here, this little indentation right here, I'm going to show you in the photo here. Yeah, this little indentation right here lines up with this right here. So what you want to do is you want to put the graphics card in like this, like so. Okay? You want to have it go all the way to the back. Okay, now you're going to see on this one, I have to actually take out, on this graphics card, I have to actually take out 2 slots to put it in. So I'm going to take another one of these out. Hold on one sec. Sometimes with the computer, it takes a little bit of finesse to get the other one out. Okay, there it is there. So I have that one out now as well. Okay. Hold on one second. As you can see, it takes a little bit of finessing. Okay, now I got it. Okay, now I'm basically ready now. I'm also going to take this one out. I may be installing something additional, so I'm going to take this cover out as well, because I might be installing something additional in the future in that spot, so I'm going to take that out as well. Okay. Now you're going to see when you install the graphics card, you just take it like this very gently. You basically put the graphics card in the spot it's going to go in, just like I'm doing here. Okay. What you do is you do exactly what I'm doing here. You line it up with the spot that it's going in. As you can see, I'm lined up, and then you just basically slide it in, and it locks in place. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that's in there properly. Okay. Sometimes when you're doing this, it's a little tricky. So sometimes you have to do it more than once. You just have to take your time. Okay, I'm going to pause from the video for a second because there's a modification I might have to do here on the back of the computer. So I'm going to pause this for just a second, and I'll be coming right back to you. Okay, welcome back again, YouTubers, back to the channel. I was going to say, sorry for that temporary delay. We're going to continue doing the process of installing the Nvidia GeForce GTX 750 Ti graphics card. One of the things I ran into is in this computer case that I have. I'm going to show you what I had to do. I had to do when you're installing a graphics card. Occasionally I've run into this problem before. The case that I'm using was a Spire case I had from an old computer. It's not a new computer. When I buy the computer cases from the computer store that I use, the ones you'll see in the pinball video, the computer pinball description. If you go to the one that says the Hyperpin Pinball Computer Explained, that case I've never had a problem with. This case is an Aspire case that I had that was used when I got it, and I just put another computer in. So I had to make a modification to make it work. One of the things you have to realize is sometimes, occasionally, if you're using a case that's not a regular case, occasionally you have to make a little modification. That's fine as long as it's nothing too extreme. I'm going to show you what I had to do. Okay? The problem I had is, when I was putting the graphics card in its usual spot here, when I was trying to slip it in here in the usual spot that it goes in, when I tried to slip it in here, the problem I had is there's a little metal bracket right in here. Basically what I had to do is I had to take this metal bracket out. It looks just like this. This is causing a problem with clearances, so I took that out. Now you're also going to notice that the one thing about this graphics card is, if you notice in the back of it that it's very, very wide. It's got a wide back on it. It's got fans, and it's got ports for the air intake for the fans. It's also got the output jacks. Now, the one problem I had with this case is the area right here where my finger is, right here, this was too tight. It wasn't giving me enough clearance when I put the graphics card in. Basically, what it was doing is it was pinching this and making it so I couldn't get cables on here. So what I had to do is I used a pair of metal snips that I had, and I just cut off one of these. I cut off one of these little anchors here, one of these little spacers in here to give me more room now. Now the graphics card can slide right in. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with putting the graphics card in right now. Okay, now remember where we left off. We're putting the graphics card in here where this blue slot is right here. And I made sure that I had enough clearance in the wires, and all these wires are secured so they're not going to come loose and hit the fan. The fan's going to be right here where my finger is, so these have to be loose. So that way these are tied down so they don't hit the fan when I put the computer back in place. So now we're going to go ahead and reposition the graphics card. So you take the graphics card as I showed you. It goes right inside the spot there. But see, now I have room now to maneuver it in the back now that I didn't have before. So basically the graphics card, it just goes into its slot. You're going to see where it is, where it lines up with these slots right here. Goes in like that. And then in the back of the computer, there's also a thing in the back where it lines up as well. And you're going to see how that slips in. Okay? Goes in just like that. And then you just gently, very, very gently, when you push these in, you want to gently push pressure on these. You want to have it so it clicks in the back right here, and then you push it in the front right here. And if you get everything right, that's how the graphics card should go in. It should be just like that. Okay? Now you're going to see I'm being very gentle with that, making sure that I have clearance on all four sides in here, that everything's sitting nicely. Now as you can see, the graphics card's sitting nicely. I have good clearance between the bottom of the computer and my fan here. Now there's good clearance between here now, so I'm not going to have any problem there. Okay, now the last thing to do is to go ahead and put the securing strip on that locks this in place. Okay. Now I'm going to put, these are the spacers that I took out earlier. I'm going to put a spacer back in the bottom. Okay, there's a spacer in the bottom that goes right there. Now, the one thing I notice in this is when I try to put a spacer in the top piece right here, I'm going to show that to you next. Okay. Yeah, now that I have that, if you remember I showed you that I made more room in here when I cut this right here, that I made more room in here now. Now I have enough room in here now, I can put the spacer back in here in the back of the computer now. Okay, now what you do now is you make sure that the whole graphics card's seated. That it's seated in the back, it's seated all the way through, and that it's pressed down firmly up against the plate here. And then you put, now, some of the computers are going to have a screw system like this. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, yeah, here I am. Yeah, some of the computers, depending on the type of the computer that you have, some of your computers in the back here, you're actually going to use a screwdriver. It's going to be like a Phillips head, and it's actually going to have terminals that you actually screw down in the back. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Some of these will have terminals in the back, like Phillips head screwdrivers. You actually screw those down, and that actually holds these in place. Now, I actually have some screws that I'm going to put in here. I have to get them from the other room, but I'm going to put them in there to show you exactly what they look like so you can see how I'm going to mount this the new way. They had a clip that previously went on the back of this, but I'd rather use the screw, so I'm going to replace this clip with a set of screws I'm going to show you next. Okay? Be right back. Hey, hello again, fellow YouTubers. Welcome back to the channel once again. Yeah, I got the hardware that I needed to attach those panels I'm going to show you next. We're still working on installing the GeForce GTX 750 Ti graphics card. Okay, this is just a continuation. One of the things I wanted to add is that occasionally when you work on these computers, for example, now this was, if you remember, I told you before, this was an Aspire case. It was an Aspire case. It had a little plastic insert like this. It looks just like this. Like this. That basically went in the back and secured everything behind here. It basically clamps in and secures it. I didn't feel confident that this plastic insert was going to be sufficient for this graphics card to hold it in place. So what I did is, one of the things I suggest you do is, if you go to my computer place video that I'm going to, place called the Computer Place I'm going to have up later on, you're going to, one of the things I advise doing when if you're going to work on computers and build them like I just, have a box, go ahead and get a box of hardware like I have here. Now you can see I have various screws and other things in here, various screws. I have, adapters, little plates and things. I have things like this and here. Various things that I use to build computers, because every now and then when you're building a computer, like when you're doing something like this, you're going to run into problems occasionally. The one thing you have to remember when you work on a computer, you have to also remember that I'm doing the videos, I'm showing you these as I go along, so I'm encountering the same problems that you might encounter. The main thing when you work with something like this is you just have to have a lot of patience. Working on computers, a lot of times it's a game of patience. You have to have a lot of patience. It can be frustrating at times, but you got to try to figure out the best way to solve a solution. Like the problem I had here. Now I didn't expect to have this problem. This is just something that I was just showing you a video, and I said, "Oh look, I have a problem I have to solve." So you got a chance to see how I actually solve a problem, which is good for you to learn from too. How you actually solve a problem if you run into them. I don't run into problems very often during installations like this very often. This is one of the few problems that I've had in the past year or two since I've been doing computers. But at least you got a chance to see how I worked through it and how I resolved it. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to secure all the other screws and things to hold the graphics card in. Okay? Now, if you remember, I told you that this plastic clip that was in here, I replaced that. Not going to use this. Not going to use this anymore. I want something more secure. So what I'm going to use is these little plates and things that go in here. Now, I'm going to use the actual screws. There's actual screws that hold these plates in. Now you're going to notice on this computer that on these actual holes here, I'm going to give you a better shot. There's actual taps on these holes I'm showing you. These are actually taps so they can take a screw. That's what I'm going to put in there. All right, we're going to secure the graphics card first. Now, as you're going to see on the graphics card here, there's two screw holes that go in here on both sides of the graphics card. We're going to go ahead and we're going to secure them. Going to go ahead and secure them with a bolt like this. We're going to put a little screw. We're going to put this right in here, and we're going to go ahead and secure that. Just like that. Now, when you tighten the screws down, you don't want to over tighten them. Just tighten them so it holds the graphics card in, like I did there, but not overly tight. You don't want to strip the threads out of the screw of these as they go in. The metal that the screws go into is not real heavy duty, so it's very easy to strip the threads on these things when you put these in. So my advice is put it in so it tightens, and then just give it a little turn, and then you're good to go. Don't over tighten them because you don't want to strip the threads. Because if you strip the threads on the case on the case right here, that can be a problem in itself. Okay. Now I put the bottom plate in next. And now the top plate. Okay, hold 1 second. I'll give one more little tight on those. Just a little bit more. Okay, and now our graphics card is installed inside the computer. Now you're going to notice here, I'm going to show you another close-up here to show you what I did. Okay. Now if you remember before we installed this, remember I told you that I had to install the graphics card. Now the graphics card's in place. Now as you can see, the blue tab's all the way to the back. The graphics card's properly placed in place. Now it's secured with the 4 bolts and with the 4 screws here, and that basically secures the case in place. So now that part's done. Now, and you also notice in the bottom, if I show you a close-up here, this is what I was telling you about the clearance between the fans. If you can see in here, I'm going to hold this up so you can see closer in here. This is what I was referring to when I said the space between the fans. If you see right in here, there's a space between the bottom of the motherboard right in here. This is the clearance you want to be careful of. You want to make sure that that clears the fan that's underneath here that's turning. So you want to make sure that's all nice and clear in there, and it will be. As you can see, I have the wires tied down so that it's going to clear. Okay? Okay? And now I'm going to show you what the back of the computer, what the back of the graphics card looks like as well. Now, as you're going to see on the back of the graphics card here, I'm going to give you a nice good close-up of this. This is what I was telling you about having the problems with the spacing. Let me zoom in here so you can see this really, really well. Okay, this is what I was telling you about. I had problems with the spacing. That little piece of metal that was on top of here, the little piece of metal was too close and it was brushing these. You always want to make sure that when you put a graphics card in like this, that you have plenty of clearance in here, both on the top and on the bottom for all the connectors to go in. These little pieces right here actually remove. You can remove these little pieces. These are just little covers. These are little covers that cover the connectors that aren't being used. As you can see, I can remove these just like that. And then this right here, this is where I'm going to actually connect the computer to. That's going to connect right in here. And as you can see in here now, this is what that's that port I was telling you where the fan for the fans. This lets air in for the fans. So you have to make sure when you put this in that you have this open to let air in for the fans. This actually requires 2 of those slugs to be, these are called slugs, 2 of those to be removed, and then the other 2 are going to stay in there. And now you can see where the bolts actually come through as well. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install that on the computer, and okay, that's going to be my next thing. There's one other thing I need to show you that comes with this too. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to show this to you. Okay, something that came along with the graphics card is, I have in my application on what I'm installing this on a computer that has a VGA display. This is called a Vga adapter. What this does is this converts the actual output of the graphics card. It's adapted. It looks just like this. This is the VGA side that goes to the monitor. This is the type that goes to the graphics card. Now, as you're going to see, I'm going to show you how that goes together. Okay, what that does is this actually goes in the back like this. It slides in here like this, like that. And then there's a set of screws on here that go on either side that tighten down. Then the VGA monitor attaches to the end here. Now, the thing to keep in mind, when you have these adapters in the back, I'm going to get you a better angle here. When you have these adapters sticking out of the back like this, at the back of the motherboard, it's very important that if you're going to be moving the computer a lot, what I suggest you do is, because this sticks out a fair amount, go ahead and loosen this and take this off when you're moving the computer. Because if you hit something and you bang this, you run a risk of breaking the graphics card, and you don't want to do that because that's a pretty expensive mistake. So my advice is, if you're moving the computer, go ahead and just take this off where you're moving the computer. When you're done, just reattach it. There's some little screws in the back of this. If you can see in the photos here, I'm going to see if I can show you. Yeah, there's some little screws in the back on this right here. And what you do is you just use a straight blade screwdriver in here. And if you can see in this photo here, I'm going to try to see if I can show this to you. On the back of this, there's little screws in here. And then what these do is these just turn. And that basically, this right here, this is what attaches it to the graphics card. These little screws right here, there's 2 of them. And you just screw that on it, and then that attaches to the back. Right here, there's one here and there's one here. And then that just goes in there, and then that secures that onto the graphics card. And that's basically how you install a video card inside your computer. Now, the thing I was going to mention to you is, one of the main reasons I put this video together is I just wanted to give you an idea of how to install a graphics card in your computer. Now, depending on your application and things, the directions may or may not be different than what I showed you, depending on the type of graphics card that you're using. This is just a general guideline, just to kind of show you how to install a basic graphics card you might want to put on your computer. I'm also going to have another video you want to check out, which is going to be how to install a hard drive. That's going to be coming up next. The second, if you remember, I told you I was going to do a memory upgrade on this computer. Turns out the memory does not need to be done. The memory is absolutely fine on this computer. No memory upgrade is required. So the only other thing I'm going to show you is how to install a hard drive, and that's going to be in one of the other videos. If you look at how to install a 1 terabyte hard drive in a computer, that's going to be one of my other videos. How to install a hard drive in your computer.